as much as you can be reversed.
Yeah.
I dropped my phone, so it won't ring.
I've had my shots, so I'm gonna take my chances. I know.
Is it 6:30? Not yet.
You know.
This thing's getting harder and harder to turn on.
Okay. Tim, we're live. We're on.
Ready? Call this meeting to order. All stand and face the flag. Pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Roll call. Rhett Luther.
Present.
R.J. Donovan.
Present?
Tim Yocum, present. Approval of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion? Ain't got no discussion on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next is approval of claims. We have a motion for approval of claims.
I'll make a motion to approve claims.
I'll second the motion to approve claims.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Not so much for discussion.
Approval of payroll comp time report. It
That
should be
doesn't
your-
have to be approved. That's for information only.
Okay. So if you want to look over that and have any questions, please get hold of the elected office
We-
holders over that department.
We don't need to approve payroll?
Yes.
We do?
Payroll needs to be approved.
Okay, just the comp time we don't have to.
Right.
Okay.
Well, we need to make a motion to approve payroll then, at least.
I'll make a motion to approve the payroll.
I'll second the motion to approve payroll for this period.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So much
Aye.
for discussion.
If you want discussion on it, but I don't think you want.
I didn't have any, but I just
Okay.
thought I'd bring it up.
We got health department update. I'm gonna read what has been sent out, so. This is a COVID-19 update for Maine County Health Department. Total number of positive cases from March 1st to March 30th is 34. The advisory caller of last week was blue, which means low spread, have not received any information on this week's status. Total residents in Vermilion County that are fully vaccinated with 2 Moderna vaccines are 2,414. This is a total reported by the state. The 2 vaccine clinics are doing a total around 500 doses a week. Health Department has done 1 Johnson and 1 Johnson clinic with 200 doses being administered. That was the allotment given to Vermilion County, and we're not sure when we will be getting another shipment and how many we will get. We'll be doing the Johnson & Johnson vaccine on Mondays as vaccines are available. Effective Thursday, April 1st, all COVID-19 vaccines will be done at Vermilion County Fairgrounds due to space. This will allow more vaccines to be administered. With that being said, if we're in the blue, I'll read you what blue is so you would know. Blue, the county has a score below 1.0 where percent positivity and new cases per 100,000 residents are combined. This is a low community spread. All general requirements are in effect. Social gatherings are recommended to be no more than 250 people. Events and social gatherings may take place up to 100% capacity when all their guidelines, including social distancing, face coverings, and plans to mitigate COVID-19 are in place. K through 12 extracurricular and co-curricular activities, community recreation sports, and college and professional sports are included and should be coordinated with local health departments. Communities should evaluate the source of positive tests, undertake targeted testing, and quarantine and isolate. As I said, blue is the lowest rating, so that's a good sign. Okay. Anybody got any questions on that? I'm not the authority to answer them, but at least it's a good sign that we are at the blue level. Anybody? Next on the agenda is Vermilion Rise. Bob Groove.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I thought I might just touch on some of the activities from our board meeting earlier in the month. we had a representative from Watchfire Signs give us a presentation on these interesting animated signs that we could use for a number of purposes to market the park and message for the community. Very interesting. Waiting on a proposal. RT Insurance came and briefed us on our insurance and risk and liability. It's been sort of an issue for the RISE, public access and things like that. So it was very helpful. And I think at the end, much like our half marathon coming up, they said, you can do events, but always reach out to the insurance people in advance so they can fully consider it and get it adequately underwritten and the like. And they also noted, that we should consider to be selective. If we start doing events, every weekend, that's going to change the complexion of our risk. And so it was a good meeting, and I think we all got an appreciation for that. So I appreciated insurance folks coming up. We talked about the jail project, and believe at our April 15th meeting we should have all the materials and information at our disposal to craft a simple agreement that speaks to what we're going to do and what the jail expects and meeting everyone's requirements. Okay. So I talked to Eric Smith today, and he's confident about that as well. From an economic development marketing, we're continuing to work with the Indiana Office of Defense Development. They've been very gracious in outreaching to us to help package the RISE in the defense marketplace, and they're bringing tools to that. We've also been reaching out to our Washington delegation, our hub zone designation, which we got for 10 years because we were a base realignment closure facility, a BRAC facility. That terminates at the end of the year. I was under the impression that we could get an extension for another 10 years, and that's not certain. So we're trying to work with the delegation to understand if this can happen or not. The thing about the hub zone, it's kind of a niche program, but it provides a federal contractor that would locate at the RISE, if we're a hub zone, special consideration when competing for federal contracts. So it's very advantageous if you're a federal contractor to be in a hub zone. So, like I said earlier, talking to the defense development people, this is a related resource for us. So we'll see where that takes us. I did meet with Dylan and Lynn before Dylan left and talked about some things that we could work together on down the road. So keep that door open and work that. We're still working on our Rainy Well closure project. The weather and river haven't been the most cooperative of late. Our insurance on our fire incident at the waterworks is still not closed. We're still going around with them. So we're hoping by the end of this next week we should have some resolution. I will mention that we received a correspondence that was sort of backdated from the Indiana Department of Environmental Management. And the letter was a notice of corrective action complete with controls. And this is something that was omitted, and we collectively kind of found it, but what it basically says is that the cleanup at the RISE is complete with controls, meaning there's certain areas that have land use restrictions. So you can't dig here, can't have any residential development there, but it's what we can share with development interest and prove to them that the remediation's over. All the federal agencies, state regulators have agreed. We're done. And so that's very, very helpful.
But when you say that, it's still not releasing the federal government from responsibility, right?
Exactly. That's what we follow up with, talking to prospects, that should there ever be something, it is all on the United States to remediate it, and that's in our deed, and that goes in any subsequent deed or lease. So
even if someone comes there and buys property, the federal government is still responsible if something's found on that property?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that ongoing for?
Perpetuity.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'd love to play that card early someone's getting anxious about the former use of the site. Say, hey, there's nothing to worry about here. You got the government, full faith and credit, to fix this,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. It's a good point, Tim. As part of those controls, we still are doing some groundwater monitoring. We don't anticipate anything there. We've been talking to regulators. They just haven't gotten around to the actual analysis and drafting our final report. This is one or two wells that are south of the RDX area. We don't anticipate any issues there. And we're continue to be ready or prepared for dialogue about storage whenever that's an appropriate topic. I know it's probably in high demand, and just getting your arms around it and determining just exactly how much space. So we're curious when there's an opportunity to talk about that.
I'd like to have another, take the people on the RISE board, if they want to Illinois, to that company here in the next couple of weeks. Also, there's some other things developing, the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And my big question to you and the state of Indiana, I know they came and gave us that little presentation, but seems like we ought to develop something in marketing. The people across the road over here, across the state line, are
Sure.
trying to come over here. I mean, they're wanting to come here. So it seems like, is there any way we can lean on the state more for a little more support? Or, I mean, this last time it didn't seem too impressive.
Yeah, and that's a good point. They got their product, and they I don't think creativity is valued there. Stay in your lane. Here's what we do. This is all we do. But it's still worth an ask.
I mean, are you familiar with what they represent, the incentives that they have from the state?
Yeah, I mean, it's training and it's tax credits, and that's really maybe some infrastructure. They got very few dollars there. That would be for a unique project. But day in and day out, those offer letters are tax credits and job training types of resources.
So economic development, or county economic development, whenever they have too much to do. I mean, how do you guys interact? I mean, is that?
Yeah, well, we coordinate, and sort of boots on the ground here, and of course they're in Indy, and there's some things we can say and coach an industry that they can't say, so there's a little bit of cat and mouse there to make sure you get the best, or what's competitive.
But from the state of Indiana, you haven't seen no marketing to move over people from Illinois.
No, what was that? Years ago, they billboards in Chicagoland. Are you Illinois with taxes? And then that kind of went by the wayside. I do just hear from some of the reps that have an Illinois border in their geography that they get a lot of calls about, well, it's maybe not Illinois, it's California, just other states that are disappointed in where they're at and they'd like a change. But how many of those act on it, and how many might just be calling to shop or have a conversation?
Okay.
We are looking to work with Cushman Wakefield and do a Illinois business targeted mailing for the Shell building. So we're going to work with them to sort of identify the profile of, business ought to at least be doing $20 million a year and have about X employees, who fits the profile would be able to afford a Shell building.
Would there ever be any possibility that could be divided? I mean, would that be too hard to do if you had two companies come in?
I've heard of it. It surprised me. I think that the companies have to be compatible. One can't be dirty and noisy and the other not, or vice, whatever. They have to be compatible. But I think you can, temporary wall, I've seen fencing, chain link fence, just dividing the two to make sure nothing in the other guy's place walks away. So it's possible.
The realtor agreement that we have on that building, does it expire here soon, or is it,
I think it's this fall, September-ish.
how's that working?
Well, you know, it's working okay. I'll just say I haven't seen a lot of leads come our way, or that I know of. It doesn't mean that they're not getting leads and just not talking to me about every little thing, that every phone call they get, or every time that our package, our building is included in a response to an inquiry. So it's kind of hard to measure right now.
Okay. We also have a gentleman coming in April 10th, looking at a potential location for a trauma center, educational field exercise facility, that is. And actually, thanks to the VTA, the race is coming up here shortly. That's the impetus for him, one of the impetus for him to be here anyway on that particular date. I guess he's going to be here Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be having an opportunity maybe to meet with him, but it's an opportunity for the Rise to showcase a little bit of what you have there, and that's his, I think his primary reason, but the impetus to be here was the marathon that's going on. So you might pencil in that anyway, that contact.
Yes.
And that's thanks to Meredith Addison and her contacts out in New York, and relayed to Melissa Weibel. So thank you, Meredith.
Anybody else got any questions for Bob? Thank you very, very much. Next is the Vermillion Trails Association Alliance. I'd like for them to come up here and give us an update on their program too while they're here.
I've just got a couple of updates, I guess, for you. We have spent a good part of the weekends in March working out on the railroad grade at Hillsdale. We had to do some significant clearing and brush stacking out there in order to conform with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife expectations regarding bat habitat.
Really?
And so we had to have all of that brush that we needed to clear. Everything had to be done by April 1st. It's all done. We had an extraordinary volunteer day a week ago last Saturday. I had recruited about 5 people with chainsaws. We had 10 chainsaws that showed up, and everybody that brought one knew how to handle it. We had 25 or more young people, consisting of the North Vermillion football team, or South Vermillion football team, a Boy Scout troop from the southern part of the county, a few 4-H people, some families showed up, and we just did an extraordinary amount of work. It was one of the best volunteer days that I've had the pleasure to be involved with. So that's ongoing. For that particular project, which I'll remind you is your project, we are still waiting on one permit from the Division of Water at DNR. We will be able to put a stream crossing in there for access for construction anytime after June 30th. We're waiting on fish spawning.
Is that going to require piping in there, or how are you going to do that crossing?
That's going to be a ford.
Oh.
It's going to be a ford. We're going to put fabric down, riprap, and number 2s.
Okay.
It's a temporary crossing, right? It's a temporary
crossing.
Right? Yeah.
Once we get done with our project, it's all coming back out. Yep. And we've talked with one of the landowners, Keith Little, down there. We have his permission to do the mitigation. We have to do some mitigation because of some of the trees that we've cut out. So we have all of that in order. But that project, it's a little frustrating waiting on some of these deadlines, some of these requirements and everything like that, but we're making good progress out there. The other thing that I would update you on, and then I'll ask for questions on everything here in a minute, is our event, which Bob referred to it and Britton referred to it, our half marathon and 5K race. And we started planning for this probably more than a year ago, And it was kind of a long shot, and we were hoping honestly to get 100 participants. As of today, just before I came up here, I checked, we have 147
Great.
people registered. I've seen people coming from Fort Wayne, from Quincy, Illinois. I mean, we got people coming in from a long ways around. So we're really excited about this race. We've been working with the staff at the Rise. Everybody is kind of on board with this, and we're just very excited about this. It will take place a week from Saturday, April the 10th,
Where's the start and stop spot
at 7,700.
Okay, and it's all inside of the
Everything is,
Rise,
virtually everything's inside the
Okay.
Rise. And the cool thing about the half marathon, it's a single loop. And if you've ever been involved with a marathon race or anything like that, sometimes they'll repeat part of the course, but almost every place they have to block off traffic. They got, city cops, they got, everybody. We don't have to do any of that.
That's good.
So we're excited about having the general public come in and see our wonderful facility out there, and I think it can, and we've already led to something here. We'll see what it leads to. So we're very excited about that.
Okay.
So, questions, anybody?
Les, on the project where you guys were clearing the trees out there, I understand you guys done a great job on that. On the volunteers, was there any waivers signed for any of those people operating chainsaws or any type of equipment?
No, we did not have waivers. Frankly, we've been advised that waivers are worth about the paper that they're printed on. We did check with your insurance people, and the chainsaws and everything, they were covered under your policy.
When was the last time you talked to him? When was the last time you talked to George?
I did not talk to George. Dave Marietta did on our behalf. He's on our board.
I know how long ago you think that was.
It was maybe a week before the event.
Okay.
George offers information at the last VTA meeting there at the Whites just a week or 2 weeks ago. He gave an update on that information that you just gave us on the insurance.
Yeah. So we felt pretty well covered, although we are, as a group, as the Vermilion Trails Alliance, we are talking to other groups similar to ours to see how they handle those things. Many of them do only waivers. And we are absolutely not comfortable with that. We've been advised to not be comfortable with that.
Dave Marietta.
But there are a couple of groups that actually go out and buy a specific comprehensive general liability policy, which would also, would layer into that whole liability issue.
The Dave Marietta no longer carries our policy, right? He's no longer involved.
He owns the company.
He's retired.
He owns the company.
So-
He's our guy.
So-
He's got the access to the agents. He
So-
did not give us that information. The people in the agency gave us all that information.
So, Brenda, who gave us his volunteer roster here? Was this from George?
I got that from George.
From George recommending that whoever is operating chainsaws or equipment sign in?
Sign in and that's enough.
That came from
No.
George.
That came from George. I mean, that would be my recommendation.
Well,
with-
and we did have a sign-up sheet out there.
And he said for you, if you would, to forward that to me in the auditor's office so we have record of that.
You got it. You got it.
We're just, I know everyone says it could be a useless piece of paper, but some way it could be valuable. The whole thing is, we 100% support what you guys do, did a wonderful job, but on the other hand, it is county, property, if something happens, it's come back to us.
Well,
you-
and the whole waiver thing, I mean, we have, I'm gonna ask Tom, we have 2 layers of waivers for the runners in the race.
That wouldn't apply to us,
But, I mean, the point is we've got waivers for Vermilion Rise, and I think for
Crossroads event.
Crossroads
So they
events,
required waivers too then?
They required waivers, but we're also carrying an insurance policy,
Okay, just for that event?
just for that event, yes. And that was required of us certainly by Vermilion Rise, but also by us. I mean,
Okay.
and Crossroads events out of Terre Haute, they're actually timing the race and putting this whole thing together for us. He had, of course, access to specific insurance that was for those kind of events.
What I'm saying is with whatever George recommend, a sign-in sheet or something, that's all we're asking you to do, whatever he wants.
We'll get it to you.
And more
We'll get it
power
to
to you. You guys doing a wonderful job, and we're here to support you any way you do.
Appreciate that.
Do we not get credit in some way as matching grants for these hours that are being presented by the volunteers?
That was the reason that we got the volunteer sign-up, is so that we could assign value to their hours.
Good.
Right.
And yes, we do. I think we can claim like up to $10 an hour for those people. I mean, so that event, it went on for like the better part of 4 hours, times probably 35 people. So that's significant, you know.
Well,
That's
when it's
significant.
considered as a matching portion of some of these grants, it's a big deal,
Yes,
very
it
big
is.
deal.
Yes, it is, and we're trying to keep track of all of that.
That's the way Montezuma Park County did the crosswalk bridge and put all that concrete on it. They kept track of all their hours, and they used that as part of their percentage for match. So, sort of like you guys are doing.
And for what it's worth, Tim, I want you to remember, the people that did that job, they were all our age. They ranged from 65 to 73 years old.
There you go.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, the young guys were 65.
We do appreciate what you're doing. We just ask you take care of that paperwork. It'll be fine.
We'll get it to
Be
you.
just another layer of protection for all of us. So,
All right.
So if there's a specific waiver or something, if John prepares that, why, we can.
the insurance company has it,
and-
right?
Brenda, is this the
That's
copy?
what I got from George.
I'll
is
get
he
a
was gonna
copy.
provide
Here, you
us
can
some
have my
sort of
copy
waiver.
there.
We should have a copy of it. Everybody has a copy.
I'm gonna make a copy
Oh,
for
for
him.
him, okay.
Yeah.
And we have
But if
also.
not, I can do one.
Yeah, it's right
Yeah,
here.
whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
where it has-
That's the way we work together. No problem.
Yeah, and we've got sample waivers from other groups too. We can review all that
It's
stuff.
part of it. It's part of it. Anybody got any questions for Rise? Any questions about the race or? So how many runners you got? 140 some?
We're at 147. We were hoping for 100, so we're killing it.
You might make 200 before it's all said and done.
It's possible. It's possible.
Why not?
So we'll go
We'll
ahead.
have same-day registration. I mean, somebody walks up with money in their hand, we've got, Ethan's bringing change, you know. Well, he's
Give me
ready
a
for
couple
it.
extras.
Thank you.
It's all about bringing people into the community, and it's good representation. It's a positive thing for a community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we appreciate your support.
No problem. Okay, we're going to move along. The jail renovation, we have two things we have to do tonight. We got to do approval of a resolution to preliminary approve the lease and the formation of a Vermillion County Building Corporation for the Vermillion County Jail Project. This is something to do with, correct me if I'm wrong, with the holding of bonds and different things like that. There was required 3 individuals to be involved in that. We got Doc Sutherland, correct me if I'm wrong.
Sutherland.
Doc Sutherland. I got hold of Mr. Marietta, and lo and behold, he was on the original bond issue of the previous jail. So it's kind of neat to have someone who was there the time before. And John Scott. So that's going to be the John Scott Oil. That's the 3 that's going to be on that committee. The committee is, if you want to read about it, it's nothing where anyone's held liable for finances or anything. It's just something we have to do. We have to form it to move along in this part. You want to comment on that if you want to?
I guess first we need to, we'll be developing a holding corporation. Basically, it's called Vermillion County, Indiana Building Corporation. It'll be a holding corporation for the lease of the premises, of which we'll be paying back to that corporation the monies that the jail will be, or they'll be paying the bonds and we'll be paying them the lease for the building. The existing jail will be held as collateral for that corporation. There'll be a non-for-profit. I'll take this off. And we'll need to form the corporation before we actually elect the board members to that or appoint the board members to that. But the corporation's required to be able to finance and bond this project. And so, unless there's any questions, we can go ahead and proceed with the development or the approval of that corporation. Is there any questions or anything that need to be asked or want to be asked? If not, I'll make a motion. Make a motion to approve by title and articles that follow the articles of incorporation, Vermillion County, Indiana Building Corporation, and the articles that follow that we form that corporation for the purpose of holding the lease on the Vermillion County Jail project.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Discussion.
Discussion?
I don't have any discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Next on the, also, we have the next part of it. I don't have that, know where my paper went. But the second part of it was to make it so that the expenses that we spent out before the job would be reimbursed for the bond sale. And that's the other thing that we have to have a motion on, and correct if I'm wrong. You want to talk a bit about that, Brett? You're more familiar probably with it than I am.
We can do that, or we can go ahead and elect the board members at this point.
Okay.
Depending on how you want to do that.
Okay. You tell us how you want to do it. It's fine.
Let's elect the board members at this point.
Okay.
We have 3 appointments to the board for the corporation, for the Vermillion County, Indiana Building Corporation, and if you'll name them again by name.
Doc Sutherland, John Scott, and Dave Marietta.
Is Doc got a formal name? Or is that his formal name?
Oren.
Okay. Now, I'd like to make a motion that we approve these 3 board members by name. If you'll go ahead and say it again.
John Scott, Oren Sutherland, and Dave Marietta.
Be appointed to the Vermillion County, Indiana Building Corporation until it expires.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. You want to discuss the next one also while you're there? On that?
Yeah. In order to reimburse the county from the bonds that are going to be sold, it's necessary that we pass a resolution to be able to make those claims. We are spending monies at the present time for the design from the architect, RQAW, for the water lines that are coming across from the rise, and for the construction management for the project. In other words, the bids and so forth. Until we get the bids back and we know exactly what is going to be expended on the jail project through construction and its commissioning, we'll need to be able to reimburse ourselves from those bonds, and that's what this resolution would do. And so, unless there's some discussion at this point, I'd like to make a motion accordingly. Is that all right? Or do you want to entertain any questions?
Did anybody ask any questions about this?
What resolution number will that be?
I don't have the resolution with me, so.
No, you don't. Okay. I was just going to say that.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
We don't have a resolution number for it?
I can get it.
I prefer that.
While there's a pause, don't forget to preliminarily approve the lease.
Say again.
You're also supposed to preliminarily approve the lease.
Okay.
We'll wait.
Hmm?
We'll wait till
I just didn't want you to forget.
I would. I did.
It's okay.
$2021-9.
2399.
2021-9.
2021-9.
Accordingly, not hearing any other discussion, I make a motion to approve resolution number 2021-9 by title. Title is a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Vermillion County, Indiana, regarding the reimbursement of certain preliminary expenditures from the proceeds of bonds.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Now we need to deal with the lease, you say?
Yeah, you're, along with the building corporation, you just need to say that you preliminarily approve of the lease. You're just approving of the form of the lease. We may tweak it a little bit, but you're approving of its form.
We should make a motion to provide for the preliminary lease of the facility, the existing jail facility, to the corporation. I guess that has to be a resolution also.
Yeah, a resolution would be sufficient.
So I guess that'd be 2021-10 by title.
All right. Is that your
Yeah.
motion?
Yes.
I'll second his motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Board appointments to the Drainage Board. We're done with this, right? Before I move on, we're done with this part.
Yes. Yes, for now we are.
Board appointments, Drainage Board. Mr. Mack, you want to come up here?
We didn't have a quorum for the meeting, so we didn't proceed with anything.
Didn't have what?
We did not have a quorum for the drainage board meeting.
We can go ahead and
We can-
approve what board members though that we
Okay.
would like to.
Yeah, the
appoint.
board members, that one.
Okay, well, we had, 3 gentlemen show up, Tyler Smith, from the Hillsdale area, Kurt Hill from the Dana area, and, Brent Morgan from the Cayuga area.
Right.
So at this point in time, those are the 3 that we would like to get appointed. And we'll look to add an additional person, so we'll have an odd number on the board.
Okay.
If we do that, then we can have 3 or we can have 5 on the board. Right now, we're looking to have 5 members on the board, of which 1 needs to be a commissioner. Right now, the board members consist of the 3 commissioners at this point. And if we would like to entertain those and remove at least 1, I guess we can keep all the board members. No, we have to remove 1. 1 would have to resign as far as a board member or as a commissioner is concerned that sits currently on the board, and either approve these or not approve these individuals to sit on the board accordingly. So
Is there
that's
a
what we're
statute
saying.
on that board as far as so many commissioners got to be on it?
Yes, we have to have at least 1 commissioner
Okay,
on that board.
okay.
The surveyor sits on as an ex officio member of the board. He's a non-voting member, but he's also the one who basically initiates all projects that the board would consider, for the most part.
So, someone want to make a motion to accept these 3 on the?
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation from the surveyor that we appoint Tyler Smith, Kurt Hill, and Brent Morgan to the Vermillion County Drainage Board.
And can we add to that motion to one of you resign from the board?
That's fine. I can resign from it.
I can, I mean, it don't matter.
That's fine.
I mean,
Don't
really,
like jump in there.
No, but really, one needs to be on there, one needs to be on there, and I have, Britt's the one that needs to be on there, I mean, I'm just,
With just one of you right now.
but we can still attend the meetings, you know, it's no big deal. But,
just-
so whatever makes it work, that's what we're here to do.
Well, we can only have 5, and if you
Okay.
vote these in, that makes too many, so.
Okay.
But we do have another gentleman that wants to be on the board, he just couldn't attend the meeting today.
Okay.
So if you do that, then you've got 5.
Yeah,
Would you stay?
I'll plan on staying.
Good. That resolves it.
So,
So-
one of you, as part of the motion, would one of you resign also?
Yeah,
Okay.
both of
So
us said we would, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Well, then okay, I guess you can do that. Sure,
it's both.
yeah,
Fine.
okay, I'll second that motion.
Discussion?
I think we discussed it.
Yeah.
The Drainage Board, if the county hasn't been aware of it, hasn't really been active. In the past, it's always consisted of 3 commissioners. And with that, there really hasn't been much brought before the board, and in fact, we didn't know that we even really had a legal drain or regulated drain in the county until Ron was able to do a little research, and so far we did find two. One of them is in Dana, and that one actually has been turned over to the Dana Drainage Board, and taxes are being collected on that from that particular drainage area. The second one is the Morgan
Farmer Morgan Ditch.
Morgan Ditch. That ditch is in the county. It has been collecting taxes as well that have been sitting there. Apparently the landowners have been basically maintaining that ditch line, but it is a legal ditch of the county. Until I read into the Drainage Board, I didn't realize it, but the Drainage Board, I'm not sure what year, but they included the county drainage, not just legal drainage, but drainage in the county. So if it crosses property lines, basically the Drainage Board can have some effect on that. We had a long discussion, probably an hour and a half discussion almost this afternoon on what the board would be doing and how we'll be conducting our business once we had the board officially in place. And with that, we've already had, I think,
Probably six.
six
projects.
cases already in front of the board already, which we need to be looking at as far as potential issues and whether the county will actually get involved in it or not. This carries a little bit further in that we're going to be asking land planning and area planning to make sure that the Drainage Board signs off on any of the improvements that are made in the county, subdivisions, or any changes in the county, and as far as zoning and so forth goes, that the Drainage Board also signs off or has a signature responsibility to that. The last thing probably is with the county highway. We have a number of common interests there with the county highway departments in all three districts, and we'll be asking the Drainage Board to review those as we get them prioritized and as we make drains. It'll carry over to our easements and road cuts that the Drainage Board will be signing off on those. We've had a number of issues of utilities coming in and not being inspected, also of potentially cutting lines and not making repairs effectively. And covers over into tiles where property owners have had to individually take care of these things, and with cross drainage coming from one side to the other side of the aisle. Even though highway drainage is linear, it has a number of ditches and number of culverts, but also all the utilities that come through them. And so the Drainage Board will be signing off on those changes and those approvals. Those petitions for those will be redrafted, and we'll be redoing the effects for the cost of those permits, because we will start doing these in a proper manner, and we should see that coming down within the next 30 days.
Anybody else got any questions? I think it's an excellent thing to do to have more local people involved. I mean, I think that Ron has been doing an excellent job as far as our new surveyor, and getting new people on that board I think will be very, very positive step.
Oh, you're right. Didn't cover that part. We actually were looking for individuals that had some drainage experience, one from the north, one from the middle of the county, and one from the south part of the county. The last member we're looking at is hopefully will be one who's not necessarily educated in the drainage, to be able to ask questions and basically challenge why we're doing something, so that we don't become complacent with necessarily what we're doing, and keep it in front of us as to ask the question why and make us explain why we want to do something or what's going to happen. So anyway, that's the formation of it, and that's why we want to go to a 5-board member and mostly a public board as opposed to a commissioner-driven board.
Very good.
That's it.
Thank you.
That's it.
Next one we got is bid specifications, establishing responsible bidding practice and submission requirements ordinance 2016-005. Anybody, any comments out there, want to speak? Want to speak on this ordinance?
You know what my sentiments are about it? I don't want to see you do away with it.
I'm just saying it's your time to speak if you want to speak. This is your courtroom, you know, and that's what I'm trying to say.
I think it offers the employees protection. I think it's a good thing to be promoting apprenticeships. There's not a thing in there about how much wage you gotta pay anybody. All it does is protect the employees and makes the contractor help create opportunities for people that graduate from high school that realize college is not for them, but maybe trade school is for them.
I think there's a number of issues, or a number of good points in this ordinance and why it was drafted. I think it had good intent with it. The thing is that it's probably real heavily weighted toward the union type operators, and so I think it does restrict some of the non-union operators. What I'd like to see is keep this ordinance, but keep it as a basically repeal it and keep it as a guideline to the county in forming its contracts. Most of the, I think, relevant things, if you look at it first, it says basically it's to protect the payroll or the payment of funds to the individual employees of contractors. That's the premise of it. He goes on and gives definition of how that might be done, or actually it says how it will be done. The state's rules with Form 96, I think it is, covers a number of these line items at this point. It's a requisite that has to be within the bid documents. The bid documents of the AIA, there is some conflicts in there between that ordinance and this, and those are always living documents that change, not necessarily every year, but most of the years. I see this as being a guideline better than being in conflict with our bid documents for any project that would exceed these dollar amounts. As far as the protection that it requests at the beginning, certified payroll is required of the projects. I think it also puts an onus on people that have the smaller contracts, because I think some of these limits are like $150,000. I think that causes a smaller contractor, basically you're looking at contractors of less than 10 people, that this would actually start affecting. And the onus of putting some of these requirements on them, basically complying with, it's not exactly complying with Davis-Bacon Act, but it's alluding to Davis-Bacon Act anyway in some situations. But I think the intent of it is good, and I do think that the requirements in here, I think we need to look at and employ into our bid documents. I like that. But I also see conflicts between our bid documents where we're going to have to be very careful of how we write the bid documents, compare that to that, and you're looking at a lot of administrative duties on top of the county, or we pay for it to be done, to be doing that. So I'd prefer to see this repealed as an ordinance, and I'd like to see it brought back as if it would be a resolution or a guideline, to be brought back as a guideline to be referenced whenever we are doing contracts. That's a comment only. I've not discussed that with anybody, but it's my thoughts.
Anybody got any comments?
The $150,000 limit you're talking about, that's anything over that amount. Anything under that amount, this wouldn't apply.
Agree.
The second thing that I like about this, and what you're going to run into, because it happens all the time and it's happening more and more often, is contractors will employ somebody, but they don't pay them and withhold taxes and all the necessary benefits. They call them a subcontractor. They pay them straight across the board, then at the end of the year, the guy gets a 1099, and all of a sudden he's got $20,000. He's liable to pay state, federal, local taxes as well as pay self-employment tax. And it happens a lot, and it's happening more and more all the time because the IRS doesn't have enough people to enforce the employee versus subcontractors thing. And this thing, the requirements in it, with the certified payroll and making sure that people are having the correct amounts withheld and everything, make sure that the county gets their share if the person just happens to be, somebody happens to be an employee who also lives in the county, but it makes sure that when they are my age if there's anything left in Social Security, they have been a contributor to it, and they're gonna get something from it.
The certified payroll will be retained. It's actually in that Form 96 that the state requires on certified payrolls. There's a payment bond that's owed and a payroll bond that is required also of the contractors. So if for some reason they go belly up, there is bonding that also covers over that, over and above what this resolution does. This resolution just says that you'll have a certified payroll, basically. The issue of 150,000 and under, that's fine, but 150,000, the contractors I work with, 150,000 is almost a beginning point, and they're very small contractors, anywhere from 2 employees up to 10 employees. Most of these contracts, that lower limit basically catches almost any project that we're going to be doing out here on this, I believe. There probably are some subcontracts that'll be let for something less, but this contract here is for the primary general contractors, or for the 10 or 14 type contracts that we'll be letting. Like I said, I think there's great guidelines, and we need to make sure some of these things are included in the proposal or in the bid documents to make sure, because Form 96 does not cover every single thing that's on here, but it covers a major portion of it.
So by repealing this or doing away with it, then you're telling our local, nationally, federally accredited training site that we're happy to have you in our county, but we don't agree with what you guys are trying to do.
Not at all. This is saying that we want to make sure that we have an open and competitive bidding, and we have.
They can be open and competitive, and they can belong to an apprenticeship and training program.
Well, the way this is written, it is strictly a union.
No, it's not. I don't see the word union in there anywhere.
Well, to be able to comply with this on this particular project would be basically a union operator. It has to almost be a union operator to be able to comply with, or to have the information available even. When you say that it has to be a training operation according to and I forget the number on it, but the federal form, that is a apprenticeship through what's commonly known as the unions. It's the Fair Wage and Control Act, but whatever you want to call it. I don't see it taken away from anything with the unions. I particularly like the unions. I think that they're very valuable. They're one of the few agencies that are labor and equipment operators that provide training. You find whenever you have them, I've had less problems with union operators than I have with non-union operators, primarily because of the training issues. I've schooled, or I've provided schooling for the operating engineers. I don't know, I see this just being a total union initiative, and I think we need to have this as a competitive bid and allow smaller operators as well to be able to do that. And I think it also provides the opportunity for union to shine on this, because I think some of these things need to be included in our bid documents. I think it's a guideline. I think it can be in conflict now. In fact, some of the information in here is already dated. You'd have to go back and search for an exact form to be able to actually comply with it now, even. And this was in 2016. I think that'll be a continued problem as we go forward.
Thank you for letting me stay for peace.
Brett and I agree with a lot of those statements there, and I do think it would be a good guidance for the county. I would move with a motion to repeal Ordinance 2016-005.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Discussion. We've had a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
The one thing I do, after assuming that this would pass as a repeal, I do like to see it come back as a guideline. And if that was to happen, John, how would that be a resolution to come back, or can we make a guideline?
There's a statute that says you can set procedures. So you would be creating a procedure that you intend to follow in the future. that could be in the form of an ordinance or a resolution, or however you wanted to word it. I can get you guys the statute before the meeting's out.
Okay. Whether we do it at this meeting or at our next meeting, I'd like to see this come back as a guidance document for the formation whenever we do projects, not necessarily the size of the jail project, but even the smaller projects that this references, because I do think it has a lot of merit to it. I think a lot of thought has been put into the formation of it.
I will get you that statute and we can make that happen.
Okay. That's all the discussion I have.
Any more discussion?
Call for the vote.
Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
Oh, bless you.
Next new business, HR, Anita, you here?
I forwarded all the commissioners a copy of the information that USI provided us for their top recommendations for the county insurance. And the insurance committee met on Monday to discuss these. And we would like to stay with Anthem and Sun Life for our vision and HRI for our dental. We have a slight increase on the medical insurance, but it's just a very small one. We haven't had a raise in the last 6 years. So I would like to offer the commissioners to approve Anthem, and then also the $1,000 employer donation for the health savings account.
That's what we're currently giving, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's $1,000 of what I meant.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did we talked about, or I asked a question, I don't know, I remember an answer. What's the maximum that can be put into that employer contribution with the program that they currently have?
There's this, I do believe it's $3,600 for that.
Okay.
It's included in the booklet, so.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they didn't get the booklet.
No, I didn't pass that out yet.
Yeah,
It's not approved.
2021, it's $3,600 for individual and $7,200 for family. If you're 55 and older, you can contribute a $1,000 catch-up contribution.
But the county can contribute up to $3,600?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Between employer and employee, Brittany, it can't exceed the $3,600.
So we do have some employees making their own contributions into the account themselves, in addition to the $1,000.
That's only for the HSA
Correct.
insurance
Mhm,
portion of
yes.
it, not the PPO?
No.
And the increase in the insurance, is that for both programs?
Yes. Mhm.
For both?
And it's a very minimal cost. I think family coverage went up $9 and on the health savings, and it went up $15 for the PPO. So very minimal cost.
That's cost to the county or cost to the employee?
To the employee.
And
So-
Mr. Luther, also note that if someone, we put the $1,000 in there for the HSA, and someone down the road is, you know, they're not contributing anything, just the county contribution. If throughout the year they're told you're gonna have to have a surgery so that they know that they're gonna have to meet their deductible or whatever, then they can put up to that amount in there so that it would be on a pre-tax basis for them for the cost. And we work with them on an individual basis if that ever comes up.
And they can do that on a lump sum?
Mm-hmm. They can do it on a lump sum, or they can do it out of their paycheck.
Sure.
And if they want to do it on a lump sum, they can simply just write a check out of their own personal checking account and put it in there, and it's taken care of when they do their tax return.
Are they advised, do we sit down with the employees and advise them of what these benefits are, or what?
Yes,
the
And we
I
costs
do.
are?
include it in the booklet, too.
I do that, and then I also have a special forms for employees when they want to. I do have a couple that they've known they've had a surgery coming up, so they come up and we bump it up and then we back it back down after the procedure is done. So they're all very well aware of this.
No, this isn't quite relevant to what the discussion is right now, but I'd asked before about employees outside the county, in other words, in our towns and our cities, and townships for that matter. Can they be included in our insurance?
We're gonna check on it with Anthem. We do currently have one person, I believe, that we got approval for in the past. And so it's simply that I just have to go to them and we can get you a cost of what that would be for the county.
And would that be a benefit to the county or a negative to the
It could
county?
be either one, depending on health conditions and age and sex and all the demographics.
And you'll be able to advise us on that?
That would be a no. I can tell you based on sex and age, and that's about it, so.
Okay, thank you.
So Anita, you're needing approval for the new insurance with Anthem for the upcoming year and the $1,000 employer contribution?
For what period of time?
It'll be from May 1st for medical insurance, June 1st for dental and vision, and then that will last until April 30th or May 31st.
Do employees sign up by May 1st? Is that what it is?
Yes.
That's
Yeah, I have an open enrollment period. As soon as you guys approve it, if I can hit the ground running tomorrow, I plan on doing that tomorrow to start open enrollment and send out information to all the employees and start meetings and getting information.
Do I understand that you go to each individual employee and discuss this with them?
I
That's
try,
what I do.
100%.
And how do you cover the garages? You go out to the garage then?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually visit the garage. We go at 7 a.m. when they first get there and grab them while they're not busy.
Same thing with the health department? And
Yes. Yeah,
the
economic
remote
development,
facilities
4-H, yeah.
Okay.
And Mr. Lucas, also every employee, as a lot of you in here know, are given my personal cell phone. I'm available 24/7. So if there are people that are off work that want some individual coaching, I'm available during that open enrollment time.
Does anybody call you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They call me on vacation, they call me after work, they call me on weekends, and I'm pretty flexible with it.
And what is the cost per employee to the county?
Depending on what coverage they want. So for family coverage, it is $1,675.33 for the PPO. And then for the health savings account is $1,540.92 for the health savings account.
I assume that's per month?
Yes. Do you want the single and employee and children and spouse, all those costs also, or?
Do we get a breakdown on?
Yeah, I can give you a breakdown.
Eventually, yeah.
Yep, I can definitely do that. I actually give those out when you guys sign up for your benefits. I actually do pass those out, and that's actually part of your packet.
Anybody else got any questions? We got a motion here.
I'll make a motion to approve Anthem for the new insurance for the following year and the HSA employer contribution of $1,000.
I'll second the motion.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. All opposed? Okay, you might as well, do you want to stay up here on this other one too?
Yep.
Okay.
And it's gonna change, it's gonna be 11 instead of what's on your paperwork.
It's going to be 2021-11? Okay.
And this is the resolution for the COVID relief. You guys asked me to put something together, and I prepared that and sent it over to John, and John just did the resolution. So we're gonna make this retroactive back to January 1st, so it'll cover the employees who had issues prior to this date, and then it will go forward until May 31st, and then we'll revisit it if need be, if we need to continue this on, or depending on what happens with COVID.
This will expire at the end of the year, or?
As of May 31st, unless we need to revisit it.
Okay.
So it's depending on what happens with the COVID.
We've had several employees already use a lot of their time right now.
Correct. Yeah, so that's why we just want to make sure that we have some COVID time available, so employees are not trying to come back to work too soon because they don't want to use all of their personal sick time, and then it is extremely early in the year. So if they have a surgery coming up or something, then they're not going to have the amount of sick time that they need to cover those. So this would just be for the 80 hours or 10 days that would cover them.
You want this to be read?
If that's up to you.
You guys want to read this publicly?
I'd read it by title, but you can read it if you want.
I'll just read it real fast if I can. Not real fast, but fast enough people can understand it. COVID relief days can only be used by full-time employees who test positive for COVID or those who have been exposed to COVID and have to quarantine. A positive COVID test result must be provided to the county HR, or a signed affidavit is provided by our county HR stating the employee is required to quarantine according to the county health department guidelines due to exposure to a COVID positive person. COVID relief days are available for each working day. Quarantine period is defined by the Board of Health. It includes weekends, holidays, and other recognized days that the department is closed for business. Sick time rules apply to the time period of the COVID relief leave. Employees who do not follow quarantine guidelines as provided by the county health department will not be eligible for the use of COVID days in part or whole as determined by the county HR. COVID relief days may not be accumulated, saved, or used at a date later than the expiration date of the COVID resolution. There will be an allowance of 10 days or 80 hours of COVID relief for each full-time remaining county employee. COVID relief 2021 will remain in effect until May 31st, 2021, and at that time the remaining county board of commissioners will revisit the need for COVID relief. Commissioners retain the discretion to act on a case-by-case basis.
Did that get added, that number 9? I don't remember that being in there.
That was on John's recommendation.
Do we really want to do that, John?
Which one is it?
That
Approve case by
commissioners
case.
have
If you
discretion on a
don't,
case-by-case
if you don't want that
basis.
in there, take it out.
What advantage do we have to be doing, I see that being discriminatory, or dangerous, actually.
If you don't want to do it, take it out.
Which part were you talking about?
The
Number
part where it
9.
says you reserve the right to use discretion and act on a case-by-case basis.
According to what you mean by discretion.
If you saw that the rule was going to cause something to happen that you felt was unfair, that you reserve the right to make an exception to your rule. But if you don't want that, take it out. It doesn't have to be in there.
What's the discussion here? I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm
that's
not
good.
saying I'm
You're
against
good
it.
discussion.
It's legal to do it either way.
Does it get us into an issue like we allow Joe over here and Ann over here or something different that causes an issue?
It would be possible to see, I guess, bad outcomes either way. You could strictly enforce a rule and have maybe an unfair result come, or you could use discretion and have somebody argue that you weren't applying your discretion fairly.
Of course.
So.
Okay, just a matter of discussion.
Totally up to you
I'm not
guys.
saying eliminate it.
It's legal if we leave it the way it is.
It's legal if you leave it the way it is. It's legal if you change it.
We have such wisdom, I'm sure we'll do it right.
I think we'll leave it in there. It's up to you guys. But
I would move that we approve resolution number 2021-11. I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2021-11, resolution regarding COVID relief.
I'll second the motion.
got a second discussion? No discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all you do.
Mhm.
Okay, joint blanket right-of-way bond companies.
They're just wanting you to notify travelers that they are no longer using them and they're going through Hartford. So I just need you guys to say that it's okay for us to contact them and cancel the bond with them, and so they can use the new one.
It's just a continuation of the existing bond, but a different
Different company.
insurance company.
Mhm.
And that we don't see where that's a thing to bring up for. We don't need to do anything on that, do we? Just sign it, but
Just sign it.
Reading of the American Rescue Plan. I'm a little part of this, and I appreciate.
You missed a permit
We
application
missed
for
the
work.
permit too.
A permit application for work to be performed on a county right of way.
Which one?
Number D, or letter D. sorry. Letter D, at the bottom. D.
Permit, okay, yeah. You got a permit application from Dashel, right?
Mhm.
Dashel is doing work here in the county, somewhat out here to the southwest, I believe it is, of Newport. And we had them submit the bond that's required by the county at existing time. And they have their bond, right? One of the things, I don't know if we have it in order, but we need to get it in order that anytime this goes on, that there still has to be some type of follow-up by our county highway department, either a foreman or by the county commissioner to approve when they get done with this stuff, to make sure it's done right. For when they go out and leave an area, you know what I'm saying?
So they've already been doing work currently?
Yeah.
Is that how I read it?
That's the way they all do. I mean, they apply for a bond, they go do it. And that's what it's been in the past. I'm not saying it's exactly the right way.
So when did they apply for the permit?
They came in and applied for it when they was starting, and we found it about a day later. And
Okay.
I got to them, and it's done according to what the bonding is required right now by the county. I mean, if you guys want to change something, it's totally, you know.
That's totally wrong.
Well, I'm just saying, that's the way it's been done. And if you have anything you want to add to it, or we can change and work, make it better.
Well, there will be a change in the permit application, but even with this permit application, there's supposed to be plans submitted. Where's the plans at?
Well, the plans is with the town of Newport. They have a set of plans for that.
Well, why didn't they submit those plans in with this?
No, they didn't.
Yeah, I have a problem with this.
Well, tell us, you know, we're here to make this work better, and what would you recommend, and then we can proceed to do that, to make it
Well, they
better
need to
protect the
submit
county.
plans, they need to say where they're boring at. This is 450 East, that's, what, a mile and a half of road or more? There's no locations of where they're going to do this work. There's not an indication of how they're going to do this work. If they're staying in the right-of-way or out of the right-of-way.
So you want to ask them to
There's no
request
cross-section,
them to-
typical section. Eventually, that's one thing that I'd like to do is, there needs to be, whether, for commissioners to go out there, maybe we're qualified, maybe we're not qualified to do this work. We've got other things to do than to go out and do inspections. The permit fees ought to cover us to be able to have a firm that's does this type of work to do the inspections and to sign off on the work. The way it's being done, what it appears to be done anyway, is that we're just going out and they're doing work and then it's over. If nothing happened, then we're good. And if something did happen, I don't know what happens then. But no, I think I think we need to turn the tide here, and I'm not in favor of this type of action in the county. I think it's reckless. Even with our own current standards, I think it's reckless. So that's my opinion.
So John, what could we do as a county stopping any, thing going forward with permits, with cut permits? Could we put like a moratorium on anything until
You've got the general right to issue permits and leases within the county. So you could change that process if you wanted to, or you could to an extent, you could halt permits that have already been issued. I wouldn't want to get into something where
Yeah.
someone halfway done with the project and you say,
Yeah.
now you're not
Well,
allowed to do it.
I'm looking at this like Britain on some of this, and it's just,
It's very vague.
there's not, it's kind of vague, and how do we stop this in 2 weeks if someone wants to do something?
You could just say you're not going to issue any new permits while you revamp the permitting process.
Probably look at that.
Now, as time goes, those will pile up on
Yeah.
you as a structural thing, so you want to get done.
Where do they get these at? Where do these applications come from?
From the auditor.
Yeah, they're,
These are?
yeah,
This is the one that
I've never seen this application.
yeah. They've been issued. I
There
think we're
are
all
some
agreed
that look
that,
different than this.
Yeah, 'cause I
There's
don't- this isn't-
variations to, or at least one variation that I've seen of this anyway.
I agree with, I think we're all three in agreement how we can make this look better and have more accountability. I mean, when they leave, they're gone, how do we protect the property owners? How do we, and there's a lot of issues like we're all in agree that we need to address.
Was there something we could have maybe within the next couple meetings to come back with some recommendations on changing this?
We can. It gets a little bit deeper now. It's even like ownership. Are we leasing this right away to them? They're going to put a permanent line in there. Are we responsible for it? We have ditches that have come along there. Are we responsible to find their lines and make our ditches fit to their program? What we've run into already in the county is one of the drainage board's issues is that these people are coming in, whether it's not necessarily this company, but they've come in and cut tiles. So our drainage board has issues with this, and that they're going to need to be signing off on some of these things. In fact, that's one of the discussions we had this afternoon with just a work session with the drainage board. So it looks easy on paper. We're going to go do something, but it has a lot of ramifications to the county and to individuals.
Right.
I mean, you can mess up a lot of acreage very quickly just by not performing or having a problem and just covering it up. And we've already know of those situations happening in the county. So like I said, does he do work in the county?
He's from Marshall, Illinois. He's doing a water improvement job for the town of Newport.
But this is in the county, right? Where he's working?
In the county and also in Newport.
Did Newport issue a permit of any sort?
I would not. Town Newport don't have nothing to do with it. We don't have nothing to do with it. It's up to them what are they doing in their town.
I know. I was just asking if they issued a permit.
I wouldn't know that.
Do they have an engineering firm that
Yes.
designed this?
Commonwealth.
Did Commonwealth not do their due diligence of
That's
checking
what I
with
asked when I
somebody?
came up. I said, where's your engineer and what have you done with your engineer?
Wow.
So. I don't know if you know it or not, but there was, like with Joint, they have like I believe they have a blanket thing for the whole county permit. To install cable,
Yeah, we do.
So they can go anywhere in the county and do whatever they want?
practically.
Yeah. Our prosecutor, we may need you.
Well, not as a prosecutor, and it's been a minute since I've done any property work. In fact, it's been about a decade because I've been a prosecutor that long. But you're right, Luther. You need to walk very, very gently on this subject because a lot of these roads, and you'll know this, they only exist because they have existed. Okay, they haven't been deeded to the county, they haven't been conveyed, and you haven't condemned them, okay, in a lot of counties. And I'm not saying this road specifically because I haven't looked, but you can get into a situation where you think you have a right-of-way that's much larger than you have, okay? The courts, and John, you correct me if something has changed, but boy, they've been consistent for 100 years on, these roads that are not condemned or not deeded. The road is the traveled portion of the way, right?
Correct.
So you could get in a situation where, let's say I want to put something down a ditch, and it might be a good something, okay? It might be a cable that people need or whatever, but the traveled portion of the road is what you have. Okay, so if you have a landowner that owns both sides of that road, the landowner owns that road. All right, it's just his ownership or her ownership is just subject to the fact that for 20 or more years, it's been an open and notorious use of this road. All right, but if the traveled portion, let's say, the portion that's used, let's say it's 15 feet, that's what you've got. Okay, you don't have 40, you don't have 30. And so you need to be very careful where you go and who has these permits and what they're doing. Now, and John, correct me, but I think the commissioner's records on roads are held by the auditor's office, I believe.
Some of them are.
Yeah, and some of them are held by your surveyors, some are in the, I think the auditor is in charge of certain road records. And we had cases many, many years ago where you're literally digging around in a courthouse basement to look at old records to see if road XYZ was ever conveyed, okay? And that sometimes is after a very expensive cable has been laid. So, I'm just, I guess, chiming in to say, I think, Britton, that you're on the right track. I'd be very careful.
I will add to that, sometimes we have to dig in old court records where someone got a judgment that a road was a public way but never recorded that judgment anywhere.
Right.
And then you find out they did that in 1927, then they did it again in 1952, and then again in 1988 with slightly differently worded judgments each time they litigated it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's not as easy and as clear as some contractors would hope it would be. And then the question becomes, who's liable for what just happened? Okay, and you know, I mean, you cannot take a person's property without just compensation. And so if you're running a line through somebody's property, even though you think, hey, it's the road, I own it, sometimes the counties don't. So
Let's carry this ball a little bit further. Does everybody understand how our right-of-ways have been determined when our foremen go out and do something? What they do is they call in to Penny, and Penny goes on our GIS map, hits the center of what is reported to be the road, and measures over and rounds it off to, I forget what it is, 30 feet, 40 feet, or whatever it is, and that's our right-of-way. And that's what our foremen are going off of at this point, whenever they put in something. So this, I mean, this keeps snowballing a little bit more and more, and what we think we're doing is easy, I guess, or easier, but it's not necessarily right.
I actually had one of the county supervisors call me about a road bordering Warren County, and the record from 1896 says that we own the road, contrary to what had been thought of before.
Right.
And the specific wording is, as it meanders in a northward direction. Figure that one out.
Well, there's still places where there's fords in the river that are recorded.
This needs to be addressed. I mean, maybe the next meeting we can come up with some recommendations to make it work better and more accurate.
Yeah.
Well, that's a discussion right now. This is on the table, but what are we going to do with this?
But they've already been doing work, correct?
And they submitted what was required by the county on bond. So.
Well, I think our alternatives are either a stop work order, or would they proceed without our grade or without our permission?
Well,
without our permits?
they're proceeding with what has been in effect before.
How did this came up because you saw them doing something?
No, they called.
They called you? But after the fact?
Well, they came, they was gonna start, and they said, well, what we need to do, and I researched it and found it, and I took it back to them, I said, you need to fill this out, and sit it back in, that's what they did.
So they're only doing what was asked of them.
What? You can't change rule when someone's already made in my opinion, this issue here is to be dealt with the way it is. They've done their due diligence or whatever to.
Oh, I wouldn't agree with that.
Well, that's what is in effect now.
No, it says that they'll provide plans too.
I don't know for sure what the procedure is.
Procedure is you come get a bond, to work in the county right away. Whether that's enough or not, that's what we have in place now.
That's what's happened previous years.
Okay.
I mean, that's, whether we agree with the process or not, that's the way it's been done. You know, and I'm saying, when someone's already applied for it, you can't go back and say, hey, we're changing the rules now, since you're here, you've done what is required. I don't see that.
Well, we're not changing the rules. They just didn't, we may not enforce the rules in the past, but even here it says that
There's-
you'll submit plans.
There's no other
It does
rules.
too.
Huh?
It says right here, you'll submit plans
Well,
in here, along with bond, and then I would assume, and
well, they have plans, because they had the plans. I mean, if you want to have them, bring them up here, that's fine.
Well, yeah.
The engineers Commonwealth was the one that did it, the design on it.
Well, Tim, would it be something that we could approve this application pending they submit the plans to you, and then going forward, we maybe put a stop or a moratorium on any work in the future until we get some more plans? Because, I mean, the joint thing concerns me that they may be operating on private drives that they think are county roads, because I know I have several in District 3. But I would move that we approve the permit application for the work to be performed on the county right-of-way, pending they submit the plans to the auditor, commissioners, whoever that may be.
Okay. That's in my district too.
I can appreciate that. Oh, it needs to be a second.
It's a good discussion. I mean, we're here, and by all means, I mean, if we can figure out some way to improve our government, make it better, I think we all three agree. It's a work in progress, and so I think we're doing the right thing. We could have.
You have a motion on the floor right now.
Okay.
That needs a second or not. Don't look at me.
Okay, I'm just giving you a chance. I'll second it. All in favor? Discussion?
I'm not sure that we should approve these things going forward. I don't think they comply. I understand. It's a rock and a hard place on this a little bit, but and I totally understand what you're wanting to do here. It's kind of some of the things that you run into, I think, where you say no. But I don't think they even complied with this, and I'm really disappointed with Commonwealth. Now, that's an engineering firm that does this type work, and unless they came to somebody in the county, I think that they
The town of
dropped the ball
Newport
on
should be
this.
involved in this too. You know, it's a project.
Well, yeah, I mean, we cooperate with them, that's not a problem, but I think their engineer let them down. One of the first things you do when you're looking at these projects is that you look at what the requirements are. And not only the requirements, but then you draw up plans and you submit those. But I don't know that they approached anybody in the county to do this until almost after the fact. And then they didn't provide. I mean, 450 East, that's a long road. That's my discussion. I don't think it should be approved. I don't know that we want to send the sheriff out and put a stop work order on them or anything like that, but
The thing
I
is,
can't say we want to approve this either.
they complied with what I asked them for from what information I had, except for the print, and I'll get that. And then we can make improvements from now on. I mean, next meeting we can have a session to discuss this and what we should set for guidelines.
But we had this discussion when Mr. Hill wanted to put that tile underneath one of the county roads. We had a discussion about it at that time. A lot of water is still going underneath the bridge here, and we got a lot of things to do, and we're working toward it. And I keep finding out more information as we go too, from our different surveyor and from our highway department. I'm still putting the pieces together here, and I try to make it right. Unfortunately, it seems like we have to jump into everything now to make it right, and then I don't want it to be wrong again.
Well, I think we all agree that this situation here is a project along with the town of Newport. It's in the process of being done. They complied with what I asked them for, whether you agree with it or not. They made that effort. They need to complete their job, and from now on, we can address new ones as they come and come up with a new thing.
Well, I would still prefer to see this tabled, if not, and talk to that contractor and send him back to see if he can't be working at Newport or some other place without having to necessarily pull up.
Well, I don't have no problem with the contract, but it's not that we're going to shut a job down over this. That's not going to happen, in my opinion.
Well, that's for the decision of the commissioners.
That's why I said my opinion, so it needs to come to a vote.
My reference was not to the work that's being done out here. I didn't even know the work was being done. So I'm not sure what the project is. I'm just saying be careful.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you may
And I
not
think
have
that
the
we
right
ought to,
way.
and all three
It
of us
wasn't
agree.
taken that way. Your advice, or your comments and advice are well taken. And
I'm gonna say how we go on. I have no problem with all the discussion here, but this one situation here, that someone's here has already started, I'm not gonna change that. I'll take the heat from that from anybody. They're here, they asked me, we provided, and to go back and tell them, you gotta do something different from the previous, that ain't gonna happen, not from my stand.
my project, that'd be a stop work order right there.
Okay, that needs to come up for a vote. So,
Call for the vote then.
the vote is right now, what we're talking about is approving this. That's on the,
Yeah, we had a motion
You
and a
already
second,
did.
right?
You've
Yep.
already seconded, you've already done that.
Now you just need to vote.
we're gonna bring it for a vote. Then we had the discussion, right? Vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passed. We will deal with that. I agree with you 100% at this situation. I'll take care of this myself.
Was there something we can give, since they do go through the auditor for these? Is there some direction you want from the commissioners
We
that?
have to have something on, we need to know
that-
exactly what you
that we
need.
want, you
And we
know.
can work on that. It's a work in progress, and
Because
I
this
agree with
application
Britt,
they need to-
and.
That way they're
that
not-
We need to get more thorough on these things.
Well, my thing is I wouldn't even known this was in Newport. There's no, I mean. all
Well, the biggest part of the project is in Newport.
I know,
The
but I'm
line
just
goes out of
saying,
Newport.
if you brought this to me, I wouldn't know that it was in Newport. And only if you would know, I understand that, but I would know, or Brenda wouldn't know that.
Right.
So to me, we just need.
But
it needs to
we
be
have a lot of
clarified.
work to do on that, and I think we all agree, how do we make this process better? And that's the
But
good
in the
thing.
short term, are we gonna direct the auditors not to issue any more permits until the commissioners figure out a better process, application?
And the other thing, the blanket bond, the blanket contract that Joint has with the county, I think it needs to be revisited,
I would agree.
to provide more.
So just, this covers like just road crossings for like drainage?
Any road crossing, you gotta have a permit to do that. Anytime you cut a road, that's a different, you gotta have a permit to bond to do
And
that.
as a landowner, I don't wanna make it so complicated. I understand you like engineering drawings and all that stuff. Farm drainage projects don't have an engineer involved. And to say we've gotta have engineering drawings or something like that is just, it's not.
No, we're talking about in right of ways.
Well, I'm saying, but you cross the right of way lots of times with farm drainage. You cross the road, I mean, I've made road cuts and they occur. I mean, yeah,
But I
I
think
just don't
Tom,
wanna make it so complicated that it makes it very difficult
Yeah.
for somebody to achieve what needs to be done.
well, I think, Tom, there's a happy medium from what we have now and then not getting a 10-page application. I think there's probably a happy medium of, like, you know, Annie said, it doesn't say on here where section it's at on the road, 450 East. I mean, you could say 300 West in my district, and that's 10 miles long. You know, I wouldn't know where it's at. So I think there's just some tweaks that I think we're looking at changing and maybe making this a lot more better than what it is.
And I think the joint thing, I mean, was that not done to promote broadband throughout our community, see? And that's a critical thing in Vermilion County and every community in our county, every place in our state and our nation. And so to make sure that those people have access.
I think we don't have that
access
problem
to
with
make
that.
broadband available, that's critical for our community. I just don't want you to remove that. You know, we need broadband in the worst way.
Yeah, I don't think it's that. I think it's more of, you know, there's been an assumption that some of these county roads are county roads, and we found out some are private lanes, and Joint may be operating under the fact that that's a county right-of-way. And, you know, until the county gets on board with either taking over that road or whatever it may be, we need to be a little proactive and make sure where they're operating in county right-of-ways.
And I'm just saying, promote broadband.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
wow.
yeah, nobody's against.
Okay, I didn't understand.
One of the things to your comment, Tom, is that we just had a farmer in here saying that he's had problems because they were doing this during the winter and the ground was frozen. They wanted him to come out and pull his tractor, or use his tractor to pull the blade through. And he said he couldn't do that because of the liability associated with it. and rightly so. But what they did is they went through there with their stinger and went down 6 inches and put the cable in. But now we have no room to put a ditch in because now we've got broadband cable in there. Now we can't necessarily maintain a road. So there's a dance, I agree, but you can't count just because we want something. We gotta be careful that we're not creating other people problems as well.
I mean, maintaining road drainage is critical, see, I mean, for a road infrastructure, I agree with that, I just wanna,
There's a dance there to be done, but it's also, we can't impose on other adjacent property owners or others on down the line as well.
So-
We've also had them cut tile as they put things through. That's happened as well, and property owners, or actually the farmers that had the tile, had to go back and replace their own because the company wouldn't do it. So there's a number of issues that go along with that. So, but you're right, we
I
gotta.
have it done myself, but there's the fiber optic cable right in my tile, I did not fix it. And I've had that happen.
So do you want that at the next meeting then? Do you
And
wanna
if you
talk about
break
the
one of
application?
their lines,
Put it
see
on
what
the
they'll charge you to
agenda. Keep it on
repair
the
it.
agenda.
It used to be pretty pricey anyway at
Yeah,
one
I
time.
did not, I let somebody else do the repair because I didn't want the liability.
Sure.
I understand that part too.
So, we're gonna put that on the agenda for the next meeting, and let's do some research on that, and, start bringing some better resolve to it. Next would be the reading of the American Rescue Plan, am I right? Correct me if I'm at the right spot. Vermillion County, as far as I know, and auditors, please correct me if I'm wrong, this American Rescue Plan, Vermillion County will get 1.5 million this year and get 1.5 million next year. And I just want to read just some of this so you maybe understand. What we need to do, is it on here about setting the, is that included in here as far as the resolution to create the
Yeah, but this was just a notification of what the plan was.
okay. So you want to do that, put down on the agenda and do it at the next meeting? Okay. One of the things about it, you got to establish a fund for this, set aside. Separate funds required. Separate fund must be established for each separately identified assistant provided by the ARP, which is American Rescue Plan, the naming. Counties, it's the name of the grant and the fund and range and all that, but ARP Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, counties, cities, and towns will each receive an allocation of coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. Each local unit that receives an allocation from the coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund under section and Social Security Act as added, and it goes on down, shall establish by ordinance. That's what I was getting ready to say, a separate local grant fund called the ARP Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Plan. For a county, the grant must be established by ordinance by the county commissioners. The ordinance must specify the use of the fund in accordance with the purpose outlined in section 603. Before money in the fund is distributed, I'd say it that way. You laugh, you could read too. The fiscal body must appropriate the money in the fund for a use before, consistent with the section 603C as stated, and adopts an ordinance and plan. Some of the highlights, each disbursement must be directly tied to the use of section 603C. The grant funding may be used to cover costs incurred by December 31st, 2024. So it has to be spent by the end of 2024. Note that the use of these funds for the revision of government services is limited to the extent of reduction in the revenue due to COVID-19 public health emergency. There was one other line there that, what was that one line that said what it could be used for?
It's in the next thing, I believe. Use of funds, it's in your next set. You need it here.
Fund uses, I will say this, so you can, use of the fund, subject to paragraph 2, on and on, but to respond to public health emergencies, Going down to respond to workers performing essential work during COVID-19 public health emergency by providing premium pay to eligible workers in the metropolitan city, local government or county, or their performing such essential work, providing grant to eligible employers that have eligible workers perform essential work. C, for provision of government service to the extent a reduction in revenue of such metropolitan city, non-title unit, local government or county due to the COVID-19 public health emergency relative to revenues collected in the most recent full fiscal year in metropolitan city and non-title government. Okay. The D, the last one is to make necessary investments. I want you to hear this. To make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. So I'm just telling you, this is what this says. So we will be receiving the $1.5 million in May. I believe it's May.
90 days from March 11th.
Okay.
90 days from March 11th, we will receive our first installment.
Approximately.
And it goes on down to say, if you want a copy of this, we can provide it to you if you want to read it. Okay, one of the coroner is not here. I think he'll be here the next meeting. We'll get hold of
Before
him.
you go on, when we were on the conference call, they said that we should really maybe sit down and make plans, talk to
Oh,
the
yeah.
community, and have something
Great.
going forward. A lot of the counties already have been sitting down making plans, or at least looking at.
What was it Baker Tilly or someone?
Baker Tilly.
And what was they're making recommendations, so surely there's some charge or something for them, what?
No,
There's not?
this was just
This was a virtual
they had a
thing that we
virtual
did.
class for us, and did you guys, well, I told you about it.
I didn't have time to watch it, but I read some of the
It's
comments.
very
on it.
informative, you really should watch it.
Scott Craig watched part of it.
Yep, so,
And they did state that it's gonna be, they're assuming that it's also gonna be similar to last time where, you know, in 2 weeks it could change, and in 2 weeks it could change.
Okay.
Not the monies, but the rules and the
So,
regulations.
it's probably got a lot about premium pay on there too.
Moving target.
One thing I will say, Dr. Wheat's not here, but he did follow through with his licensing agreement or his training, and it's completed. So I want to make sure that was made noted.
And his
One of his
appointee
deputies
or
are
his
too.
Deputies, yeah.
Yeah. One thing I want to address in this last situation here that came up, there was some supposedly allegations that was made by someone that the county did illegal bidding procedure on this construction manager job. And I don't know, it was brought out, and I want to say one thing right here in front of everybody. There is nothing illegal we've done here. The attorney will confirm this here in a minute, but if someone has a problem in the community and has a question, you can call me. Talk to me anytime. But making public statements and allegations is unacceptable, and we don't expect them to come around again. Number one thing, we, in the process of doing this project, and correct me if I'm wrong, anything I say, professional services in Britain, you correct me if I'm wrong, professional services does not have to be bid out. And people scream when you think about, why wasn't it bid out? Well, we need to have a right to find the best we can find. And when we did this, someone said, we didn't bid it out. Well, we didn't bid it out. We asked for quotes. We didn't ask for one quote. We asked 4 companies for quotes. Okay? 4 companies. Correct me, you guys correct me all here
I
together.
think it might have been request for proposals, wasn't it?
Proposal or
Might have
quotes.
been proposed.
Proposed, yeah.
But it wasn't
yeah.
bids, you know. But we requested 4 companies. 2 companies submitted them. We looked at both companies. Both of them said 4%. We all agreed, 4%, right? On, correct me if I'm wrong.
On the one fee, yeah.
Yeah. And the next thing was their operational expense, and 2 submitted.
That's not exactly how it went down.
Please correct me.
What we do is that we look at firms that have the capability, or we believe to have the capability, that would provide the services that we're looking for. In this case, it was for the construction management for the jail. We invite those firms to come and provide a proposal to the commissioners. In that And then we asked them, once we review their proposals, we asked them to come in and interview. We interview those companies. In this case, out of the 4, we had 2 that had responded to it positively. And so we had an interview with each one of those. Following the interview, we have a discussion between the commissioners as to our rating of them or ranking of them as to their capability. It has nothing to do with their fees or anything at that point, but their capability, their response. There's a whole line items of things that we ask questions about and that they respond to, along with additional questions that are off the cuff. Based on their proposals and that, we make a recommendation between the commissioners to interview, place them in an order, 1, 2, 3, 4. In this case, 1, 2. The first one, we asked them to come in and interview, and we asked them to come in to negotiate a contract and to negotiate a fee. If we can't come to an agreement on the negotiation of the contract or the fee, then we go on to number 2, if we just come to an impasse, if we can't work it out. In this case, we negotiated a contract that was acceptable, that we found acceptable, and we negotiated a fee that we thought that might be acceptable. We bring that to the commission's meeting, we have a discussion about that, and make it public at that point. And we I'll ask for comments from the public as well. That's not required, I guess, but we ask for them anyway. Then we take a vote on that contract and the fee, and based on that decision, then they're either selected or they're not selected, and in this case it was selected with the number 1 candidate. If we would have not agreed to it, if it had been denied, then we would have gone to number 2, and we would have gone through that process with that until we came to another agreement, and the commissioners would have voted on that accordingly. So that's the process that we go through, and it is a professional service. You don't bid professional services. They don't make gadgets, they don't make gadgets. You don't buy a bar soap, you don't buy whatever. You're buying their expertise, you're buying their knowledge, and you're buying their experience. That's what you're looking for, and you don't necessarily go with the lowest of all those. In this case, we found that these that the 2 engineering firms construction management firms that we had interviewed were pretty equal. I had some reasons for the one, and I'm sure the other 2 had reasons to either rate them higher or lower, but that's the process in which we go through in order to provide for professional services. And then we entered into a contract and we announced it and continue on there from there.
One of the things that need to be noted is there was both of them had a 4% fee, and then the rest of it was above and beyond that. It was for their operational cost, and it was minor when you added it up, like $30,000 or $40,000, $1.4 million contract. And we're looking at who you're going to. This is not all about low bid, not all about low price. It's how do we find the best one to do the job. And we had a company out of Indianapolis that was bidding against it. It was a good company. Both companies were good. We had Gormong out of Terre Haute bidding on it. And I would rather have a local company that's close to us. I can be at their place in an hour or half hour and talk to them. Also, they are doing a job for Vigo County, which is a 500-bed facility, roughly a $50 to $60 million project. And I've talked to the commissioners. The commissioners highly recommended Gormong on this. So that was the base of my decision, and it was not a huge difference in price. That was not the thing. It was close. It was competitive, both companies, and I think we all agreed you could pick either one of them. I mean, I think we all was all on the same page of that. So that was the base of my decisions. But I'm trying to and I asked our attorney here to also confirm with that. There was nothing illegal about what we did, and it's standard practice, and we made the best decision that we could with the information we had for the county. And you want to?
Well, just strictly sticking to what the law says, you may purchase services as a governmental body using any method that you consider appropriate. So whatever you consider the appropriate way to purchase services, whether you want to consider reputation, presentation, experience, demeanor, bidding is a very specific term. When you say you're going to use bidding to purchase something, that means the lowest price that can perform the work and complies with your bid specs. So you tie yourself then to a set procedure. The person who offers to do the job for the cheapest, that has filled out all the forms correctly and that is minimally capable of doing the job, gets it, regardless if you think the guy that would have charged a little bit more would be excellent, and the guy that charged the less would, yeah, they're okay but not great. If you choose to bid it, you're bound by that process. So there would be, given that the statute gives you the freedom to use any method that you consider appropriate, it would be kind of silly to bid it and then basically tie your hands behind your back and not have the ability to consider all of the factors. I mean, you don't necessarily want the cheapest architect or the cheapest engineer to do something for you. You might want the best.
So the process we follow, there was no violations or?
No, the statute says you can use any procedure that you consider appropriate. You conducted interviews, discussed, and chose someone.
I think that was something that kind of came out, and it came out in the news some way, that it sounded like we did not have anyone else involved in this. That's what came out, and that was totally wrong, totally inaccurate, totally false. So I'm just trying to clear the air, and I think that, you know, I try to make myself, I know I put myself up a target, but I try to make myself available to the people. And I think it's very important to me. And my reputation, I think everybody's reputation here is important. And if someone in the community has a problem or a question, I mean, call me up, talk to me. I mean, I'm here to be of service to you. But when you post things or say stuff that's inaccurate and totally false, I have a real problem with that. I really do. So if you want any questions answered, call us or call one of us. I mean, we're here to. We're your servants, you know, we work for you, but please give us a chance to explain ourselves and be clear in what we're doing here, because we want the best for Vermillion County, we really do. Anybody else got any comments? One other thing I want to mention, countywide cleanup days, the solid waste, was it solid waste, right?
Yep.
This is a flyer, and it's coming up April the 23rd and 24th. It's only going to be at the first and third garage, right?
Yep.
This is an excellent program every year. I mean, the drainage, I mean, the solid waste board and volunteers in our county do a wonderful job. So this is going to be going on April 23rd and 24th. It'll be at 9 to 6 on Friday and 9 to noon at District 1 and District 3 garages. So you'll hear more about this. Anybody else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.